Campsite 2 is called Ethan, and the theme of it is coming out from them, among them. And basically, as in Campsite 2, and they departed from Sukkoth and pitched in Etham, which is in the edge of the wilderness, Numbers 33:6. Ethan, one of the things that it means is contemplation. This is where they had to sit and think about making some choices, some decisions, and this is where they were having things going on in their minds, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But one of the things that I want to talk about besides contemplation is that what it also means is from them, and it also can mean plowshares, and we'll go over this. The first thing that I wanted to talk about is Egypt. Not only was Egypt a physical place, but it was a scriptural symbol of spiritual darkness. Being in Egypt, in a spiritual sense, represents our lost condition, total bondage with no hope whatsoever. But I also want to bring up Babylon. And I put in a little question there. Wait a minute, we're at Etham. What are we talking about Babylon for? Yes, we are at Etham. However, we need to take a look at Babylon. Egypt was not only the place mentioned in Scripture with a dual application. Babylon is the birthplace of sun worship, signifies the spiritual realm of pseudo-religion and false worship. Abram was called out of Ur, then Abraham to journey to Canaan, and it talks about that in Hebrews 11, 8 through 10. The story of deliverance would not be complete without noting the spiritual call to come out of Babylon. So I wanted to make sure that those two were put together, only because in today we look at Revelation 18, 1 through 4, and we find the prophecy of Yahuwah's end time people, where we are now and what Daniel was talking about, will be called to come out of spiritual Babylon. And the warning to leave the borders of Egypt meld together in the end time message of Yisrael's second campsite. So I want to make it clear, because some of us have never been in a religion or never belonged to a denomination that I've met that have never even been. They were just called out by the Father. So they were completely lost. So they may have been in Egypt. But a lot of us here tonight, we all came out of religion and denominations. And so we basically are coming out of Babylon, which is the prophecy that we're talking about now out of Revelation. So on the eastern edge of the Sinai Peninsula, near the Red Sea's eastern arm called the Gulf of Aqaba, we find the second camping spot of Etham, at Etham. As mentioned above, the name Etham meant contemplation, from them, and plowshares. They were out of Egypt proper, but not all of out of Egypt influence. In other words, although they were out of Egypt, Egypt was not out of them. Have you ever made a serious decision that you believed Yahuwah had directed you to make, only to have his voice grow silent after you had made it, and then you were not sure? In the stillness, did you begin to question your sanity, your sincerity, or your ability to distinguish the voice of Abba Yahweh? Most of us must have felt like the children of Israel felt that the second campsite in this vast emptiness, just as the name indicates. The children of Israel contemplated. What were some of those thoughts? You might want to think about some of those thoughts even in today. But, some of them, I would say probably a small, based on the scripture, a small percentage probably remembered how they'd been delivered and the miracles that Yah had brought them through, and following the pillar, the clouds, the redemption, the rescuing of Pharaoh and drowning Pharaoh's army, and the song of Moses. But then a lot of them were probably wondering, what in the world are we doing out here? And why are we going to make this long travel? And why don't we just head straight to Canaan? Why are we going to Mount Sinai? I mean, there's a lot of things here. There were a lot of different people contemplating. Just like I think today when you think about this, I think a lot of people, especially in Babylon, in a denomination or lost in religion and not really having a true relationships with Yahuwah and Yahushua, I think one of the things is, well, wait a minute, didn't I walk down the aisle, say a little prayer and get baptized? That's all I need to do. What else do I need to do? Why can't I just go straight to heaven? You know, why do I have to learn how to do this stuff? Why do I have to give up my football? Why do I have to give this up? Why do I have to give that up? You know, really? Is Sunday church really going to be an hour and a half long? They're not even contemplating the Sabbath. So there's just a lot there. I think we have a lot in common today than they did back in that day. So I want to skip over real quick to Etham as the meaning from them. It reminds us of another parallel to our spiritual experience in this journey. It is in this meaning that we call to come out of Egypt and Babylon unite. We are told to, in 2 Corinthians 6:17, come out from among them and ye be separate, says Yahweh. And that's what we're told to do. And I know that we could have stuck with the Tanakh and also the Torah, but I wanted to give some of these a New Testament or a Brit Hadashah meaning, so people can say, well, that was the old one. Well, what does it say in the New Testament? So I'm giving you a 2 Corinthians scripture here to look at. In Revelation 18:4, it says, come out of her, my people, do not partake her sins, so not to receive her plagues. In Yirmiyahu, or Jeremiah 51:6, flee out of the midst of Babylon, and let each one save his life. Do not be cut off in her crookedness, for this is the time of the vengeance of Yahweh. The recompense he is repaying her. So to come out of Babylon or Egypt means to come away from darkness, polytheism, engulfing the religious world today, so that we might serve one true Elohim of creation. It means to shun idolatry, immorality, and all would separate us from the kingdom of Elohim. What do you think Abba Yahweh is wanting at this point? Yahweh isn't just calling his people to casually come out of spiritual Egypt and Babylon. Pretty please, I love you. I gave my only son for you. I wish you would come. Please come and worship me. Oh, please. And I'm being a little facetious, and I apologize for that. But I'm just trying to make a point, because a lot of people would have you interpret his words as he's almost begging or trying to persuade us in a way, and not realizing that, yes, he loves us. And yes, if you read 1 Corinthians 13, you know, the love chapter, of course he loves us. And John 3:16, of course he loves us. But he's not begging us, because his word stands on its own. And when his word stands, he's already made his decisions. It's all been put in writing. And yes, the Ruach HaKodesh does draw us, and it draws us to Yahushua, and Yahushua points us to the Father. That's all true. But I don't believe that he's a father that is pretty please, and please come. I think he gives us commands and says, come out of there. You're my people. If you truly want a relationship with me and you want to be part of the kingdom, come out and separate yourself. Make a decision. So I really believe that that's something that it's probably more that direction than it is for having a begging and pleasing God that some people like to be appeased by. So Yahweh Oh, I'm sorry. I got a little animated there, but I said that in the next sentence. No, he is calling us to flee from it. Or as we say in the military, what part of flee don't you understand, son? You know, in order to flee from these forms of spiritual darkness, we must have our spiritual eyesight firmly fixed upon the prize of Canaan. Only when we are focused is on the heavenly goal will we have the motivation to flee from all that would deny us its attainment. And we do want to attain that, like Dana was saying earlier. The goal is Canaan. It's that heavenly Jerusalem. If we would attain heavenly Canaan, our gaze must be so focused upon realizing that eternal destiny that we cannot be entrapped by the enemy's enchantments. Philippians 3:13 and 14. And I didn't want to take the time to read all these scriptures and this when I first started, but at the top of these pages is my name, my phone number, excuse the parentheses there, my email, my new email address, because if you want this sheet, I can always email it to you if you want to email me. So when they were talking about this flee from what? In Galatians, Shaul enumerates the characteristics of the ones who will not make it through the testing wilderness. Because that's where we are right now. We're in that testing wilderness. We're in the campsite. We don't know. Some of us are moved along to the other campsites. Some of us are just coming into campsite 1. Some of us right now are contemplating. We're in campsite 2. We're brand new. We got here. We're making decisions in our life, who we're going to serve and how we're going to serve, and we're learning. And we have mentors to help us. We have people to help us along the way. But Shaul makes it very clear, and a lot of the Brit Hadashah does, even though what they're doing is they're quoting the Torah, they're quoting the Tanakh, they're quoting the prophets when they do this. And this is all in the Torah. But I went ahead and I made a list. If you look throughout Galatians, it talks about this list. And as Galatians 5:21 at the very end of the Galatians book, they that do such things, and I want to emphasize this, shall not inherit the kingdom of Yahuwah. As follows, a list of attitudes and behaviors come out of, to separate from, was just what ancient Yisrael was having to contemplate then. Were they going to give up their idols? Were they going to give up their beliefs that they had learned, all the things that they learned in Egypt? The following characteristics remain in evidence then of still in Egypt and still having Egypt in us. So I put down a list of, and these are all have the Strong's Concordance of what the numbers are. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time going through each one. I will stop on a couple that I think are they're all very important, don't get me wrong, but there are some that we are more easily set, and deceived about than others. Because I think a lot of us know that if we just paid attention to the 10 words, the 10 commandments, and guarded those, we know we're not going to go out and murder people and things like that. But there's some other slippery slopes that we can go down. But the first one is adultery. And we all know also that this doesn't mean marital unfaithfulness, but we're talking about adultery to the Father. Because when we decide that we're going to do something different other than and guard his words, guard his commandments, his ordinances and statutes, we're committing spiritual adultery. So that's just as bad as committing physical adultery on your spouse. Fornication. Another definition of fornication is harlotry. And we don't want to be harlots. No, we don't want to be going out there and being whoremongers. So we have made a decision We have contemplated that we are going to serve the creator of this universe. And so if we are going to follow Yahushua after the order of Melchizedek, these are things that we should not even having to deal with. But they are things that are out there. They are things from our past, possibly. There are things that we have to deal with. So it's good to know what it is that we want to get out of our lives as we walk this path. Uncleanness, filth in a natural or physical sense, but also moral lewdness. Idolatry, Dana alluded to this, worship of self-interest, money, etc. The bottom line is with idolatry, if you're not just worshiping Yahuwah, if you're worshiping anything else, putting anything else above Yahuwah, you're committing idolatry. Whether it's yourself, your children, your parents, your sports idols, your American idols, your America's Got Talent, whatever it is, your Hollywood, your movies, whatever it is, that you are, when you put those things before the Creator, the Father, you are wanting to stay away from that. That's what got the children of Yisrael in so much trouble all the time. They're always worshiping other idols. Witchcraft, magic, sorcery, pharmacy, and I went ahead and included this. It probably won't say this, but it says in other scriptures, rebellion is like witchcraft. So there, I wanted to make sure that when you're being rebellious, or your children are being rebellious, or whatever you see people being rebellious, it's like witchcraft. So keep that in mind as well. Hatred, having enmity or to be in opposition. Variance, contention, being argumentative. Sometimes we can fall into this very easily, being argumentative with our brothers and sisters, and having contention, especially in the household, because you don't want that going on in your own household. Emulation, making war on the good in another, making war on the good in another in an effort to diminish that person. And you see a lot of this going on and taking place, because some people, again, this kind of goes back to idolatry. Some people kind of get prideful, and they think they know everything, and sometimes they feel like they have to diminish others in order to put themselves or lift themselves up, put themselves on a pedestal. Wrath. Under wrath, it's impetuous indignation and anger. Wrath is, and of course our Yahushua, he pointed out that even if you, and I'm getting ready to talk about, this also goes with hatred, that if you hate your brother, you've committed murder. So he raised the Torah to a new level. If you look upon a woman and lust after her, you've already committed the act of adultery. So even Yahushua himself raised the standards of some of these things that we have to either have dealt with in our lives and we have to repent of, or that things that may continue to haunt us, or things that we've overcome, and now we should be called upon to help others to overcome these things. Strife, seeking one's own advantage, taking bribes, being selfish, and corrupted. Strife, one of the things it says, and I didn't put the scripture down here, but it's one of Shaul's writings, is with strife comes every evil work. It's like you're opening up your door, your front door of your home, and saying, hey, evil! Hey, every evil work, come on in. So when you have strife in your household, when you have strife in your church, when you have family, when you have strife in the body, if we have strife in T4, if we have strife in Calendar Club, if we have strife in our fellowships, this is calling in every evil work. And I only want to place this because this is something that I have personally seen over the last several years. And I just know it's one of those easy things to fall into. And along with strife and what happens when you fall into strife, you also fall into getting Luke 17:1, or in Luke 17:1, where he's talking about how many times should we forgive, 7 times, no, 777 to 7,000. How many, and because we become offended. Strife not only can beset us there, but with strife, we can then fall into one of the greatest things I think people fall into is being offended. And I did a teaching a long time ago, and I called that, it was done by a person in the church, in the Sunday churches, named John Bevere. And if you ever want to look at it, it's called The Bait of Satan. And it talks about the bait of Satan is offense. And this is where I think that in the kingdom, we need to become military snipers, and we need to have our rifles, our long-range rifles out, and with a scope, be able with precision to see strife and to see offense coming from a mile away and pick it off before it even gets close to us. Because when we get offended, that's what brings in bitterness and other problems. And one of the hardest things to get rid of as we grow older and we never take care of repenting and overcoming things is that root of bitterness. And that bitterness is only cemented inside of us because of strife and offense. So don't take the bait of Satan. It says it in Luke 17:1, and I memorized this because this meant so much to me, that it is impossible. It is impossible that offense will not come. So just know that around every corner is offense. My wife used to say when she used to teach the word that I don't care if you knock me down, climb on top of me, and saying, this is personal. I'm personally telling you that I don't like you, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. And call me a dozen names. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to take it personal. That I am not going to receive it, and I'm not going to get offended, and I'm not going to get into strife, because we can get offended very easily. It's a very easy trap to fall into. I really wanted to really do that because we become selfish, we become offensive. So sedition's the next word, separating as faction, bringing division. One of the things that in the scriptures it says, he wrote down several things that he hates, but he actually said there's a person he hates. The person that Yahuwah hates is the one who sows division amongst the brethren. I don't think I want Yahuwah hating me. You just need to selah about that a little bit. So I wanted to include that one for sure. So anyway, we get to sedition, bringing division. And then you have heresies, a form of worshiper theories that break away from truth. I'm not even going to go into this because I could some things and we'd have all kinds of people falling into that trap of the bait of Satan, which is getting offended. So I won't want to do that. But as well as I do, being here on Calendar Club, there are several things that I could mention that could whip us right into this right away. So I won't even go there. Next one is envying. Personal pain at the sight or thought of another's success. One of the things that we used to tell our daughters is what somebody else has, whether it's happiness, material things, a great job, what seems to be a great family, what seems to be a great life, just signed a $5 million contract, play in the NFL, whatever it is, that you might look upon another person. Everybody out there, it's not at your expense. The Father loves you. He's got a plan for you. He's got a way for you to travel. He's got a plan, a destiny for you. And what other people get and what you don't ever get is okay, because it's not at your expense. You're not the Father's not taking anything away from you and giving it to somebody else. So don't be envious, and don't try to lust after somebody else's success. Be happy for people that get a brand new home. Be happy for people that get a car. Be happy for people that go on a trip. You know, don't say, oh, I never get a trip. There's some of that murmuring, complaining. I didn't go there yet. But so murder, again, we have murder and slaughter, drunkenness. And drunkenness, even though it talks about strong drink, and it's basically when I look at drunkenness, I see that in a bigger picture as an excess of just compulsions and addictions. And there are many addictions, there are many compulsions, and it's almost like a drunkenness that when you allow the darkness, or when you allow these things to revisit you, or if you haven't taken care of them properly and they haunt you, if you have not been delivered from them, if the washing of the word, the water of the word, if the repentance and things haven't come and these things come at you, you'll notice that people will get delivered from alcoholism, for instance, or drug addiction, and then they go along for several years, and man, they just fall completely off the wagon and go on a stupor for weeks at a time. I've seen it happen before. And so you know that those are just, so when you think about drunkenness, just don't think about alcohol or drugs, but think about the things, because we're all built differently, and Satan knows what our weaknesses are, and we don't want to give him an advantage. So if you know what a compulsion or an addiction that you have, just simply stay away from those things that would even draw you near to those things. Don't even watch it. Don't even go near it. Don't even click on the website out of curiosity. Don't do anything like that at all. Reveling, ungodly feasting and impurity, immoral partying. I'm not even going to go there, because hopefully that's not anybody here dealing with any of that. So anyway, so I just thought that this would be a good, just know that this is all through Galatians and other parts, even in the Torah. These are all things that the Father has said. You're not going to be in my kingdom if these are the things that you're practicing. And one of the other things before we get to the next area is that I tell people that, you know, meditate. He says, meditate on my word day and night. Meditate on the things. Think of things that are lovely, that are true, in Philippians. And a lot of people say, how do you meditate on these things? Well, you have to meditate on something. Because if you're not meditating on these kinds of things, then that means you're meditating on the things that you shouldn't be meditating on. That you're complaining, you're grumbling, somebody's just offended you, you're thinking about something else. All the whole list I just went over, you must be meditating on one of those things. So what happens is, one of the ways that people get hoodwinked by the enemy to go back to these things, and visit these places. I call these the campsites of Satan. You know, these are his campsites. And in order to stay away from them, don't allow yourself to meditate on those things that would try to revisit you. And if you do get delivered from any of these things, please fill that void with the scriptures, with the commandments, with the statutes, with the ordinances, with the feasts, with praising him, and filling your heart full of the things that would replace the things that you repented. Because we all know what happens. Those things go out in the dry lands, And if you haven't filled up your temple with the things of the Father, then those spirits can come back and they're going to bring 7 more that are even worse. So we don't want to fall prey to the tricks of Satan at all. So going on, when we truly love and trust the Heavenly Father, we will delight to do His will. For His lovely characteristics will be written upon our hearts, according to Psalms 48. Remember, walking under the blood symbolizes Yahuwah's part, but walking into the wilderness 8 days with unleavened bread symbolizes our part in getting sin out of the life. Both are accomplished by His effort with the cooperation of our will. When we love to honor. When we cannot or do not know how to love, we distort love into permissiveness toward the corrupting attitudes from the Galatians list. One of the things that I learned a long time ago, and again, this kind of comes back a little bit to meditation. What happens is we all grew up with certain behaviors, characteristics, things that we inherited from our fathers, generational curses, all kinds of things. So we've had to overcome characteristics, behaviors, and attitudes. Some of us grew up in the childhoods where we all have different testimonies, of course, but a lot of us grew up in families that were where there were verbal abuse, there was sexual abuse, there was separation, there was divorce, there was an abusive, both parents being abusive to one another. There were alcoholism. There was all kinds of things. And of course, those are things that we learned as children growing up. And some of those things may have been buried deep from within us that we've not, still to this point in our life, have not dealt with. So a lot of us don't know how to love. I know I'm one of those people. It was very hard for many years to become intimate, to understand what intimacy really was. Because with the type of parents that I grew up with, my father especially, there was a lot of me being passive aggressive because he was a very violent, abusive person. It was better to be passive, my mom trying to protect us. So we learned how to be passive aggressive. Well, when you're passive aggressive and you learn not to confront and you learn just to put up with it, then that means that you have some behaviors that'll happen. Like, for instance, you might put up with something for a while, but you might have a line in the sand that might get crossed and you might just blow up like a nuclear explosion. And you might do something that could wreak havoc in your life. You might hurt somebody. You might do something wrong, Or you just may wind up destroying yourself because you might get into a compulsive or behavior where you are committing sins that are against yourself that you will wind up destroying yourself. So there are many types of things when you go down and you start studying this area. Behaviors reveal attitudes, and attitudes reveal character, and ultimately our characters, which are made up of our thoughts and feelings, are root out attitudes and their resulting behaviors. And that's why it says in Matthew 7:20, by their fruits ye shall know them. And the thing is if you meditate on these good things, on the scriptures, like what we're doing, I've been so blessed to read the Psalms readings every day on the counting of Omer. Yesterday I was talking to Tim and Charlene and Jeanette and talking to them how blessed I was, especially with yesterday's Omer count. But then again today he turns around and shows me more in today's count and reading the scriptures that were today. And I've been so blessed to go through this Passover, unleavened bread, first fruits, and now the Omer counting on our way to Shavuot with this group of people. It's been an honor for me to do it because I've learned so much from so many of you, so many people. This has been the best ever. I've been to ones before, but I had no idea what I was doing, and I didn't know what it meant because we didn't have teachers teaching us what I've learned here. And for that, I'm grateful to the Father because I'm really expecting some good things when we get to the end of this count. And I thank Calendar Club for showing me how important this calendar truly is, because it's, you know, when you pursue truth and you pursue the Father, he really does take the scales and he takes the veils, the multiple onion skin layers off, and he really reveals things to you. I'm getting things revealed to me on a daily basis that I can't even imagine, and I wish I could share them. There's just not enough time in the day to share them. There was so much just out of campsite too that I wanted to talk about. But I'm going to summarize here pretty soon because I don't want to keep people too long. But I just want to say thank you to Tim, Charlene, Jeanette, and Richard, and all of you who've been studying calendar. For Mario, for Danon, for bringing calendar to T4. You know, if I hadn't come to T4, I wouldn't have found out about calendar. And even someone like Jim Staley, if I hadn't watched Jim Staley and saw Matthew Nolan, I would have known about T4. I would have never known about Calendar Club. So I thank the Father for all the things, all the little stepping stones. And as I continued to pursue him, he would just open up little doors and I would walk through them. Well, now we're walking in campsite 2 and we're contemplating, but I have to warn you about something, because I believe that even though I'm teaching on campsite 2, I believe the Father's showing me that I've advanced to other campsites because I read ahead to some of the other campsites anyway. And I believe that I've advanced to some other campsites. And I think when we get to those, if you read about the other campsites, I think you'll see that you may, a large part of your walks, you've probably advanced as well. But I have to tell you, I think campsite 2 is always with us. Because even though I've been on this walk for a little while and my eyes were opened, losing my wife in December and being in the situation I am now, and being in the same situation a lot of you are in right now with this virus and being shut down, and a lot of you not being employed. Some of you are blessed to be employed. Some of you are blessed to be receiving funds, and I praise Yahweh for you. And I'm so glad. I'm glad that you are blessed to have those things. But see, right now, I'm in campsite 2 all over again when it comes to contemplating what my future is, which is actually what is leading me to the next phase of campsite 2, what we're going to talk about a little bit. And that is what I see happening around me with other brothers and sisters. So let me go ahead and wind this part up here real quick. But I want to stress again that behaviors and attitudes and your character is all about what you meditate on. And if you're meditating and pursuing truth in the scriptures, you are on the right track, and the Father will take care of everything else. He will purge all the other things out of you. Etham also means wholeness or perfection. The perfection is the Etham experience, is that completeness of surrender that comes through deprivation and suffering. The children of Yisrael challenge at Etham was to be complete in the resolve and come out. The children of Israel coming out of Egypt, going to campsite 1, you can already see, and as they got to campsite 2, and what you're going to see when they go to the other campsites is the murmuring and the complaining. So the easiest, all they had to do, and I say all as though I've been there, done that, which I haven't. But all they had to do, the Father showed them all of these things. And all they had to do was trust. They just needed to be trust. They just needed to obey. And because the Father already knew their future, he wasn't going to rush them to Canaan. He needed to bring them to Mount Sinai. He needed to show them. He needed to test them. He needed to reveal himself. Because remember, if you go all the way back to Genesis 1, in Genesis 1 and make your way through the Exodus, oh, we got a little bit of noise there? Okay. So in Genesis 1, he was Elohim. Remember, he was Elohim. And then he reveals to Moshe, Mount Sinai, tell the people I am who I am, you know. And now in the campsites, he's revealing himself as a loving, caring Father, Abba Yahweh, who's going to take care of us. He's getting ready to make a covenant with us. He wants to teach us. He wants us to walk in his ways. He wants to teach us, but he wants us to obey him. You know, so he has to test us. And he has to see, are we going to be obedient and are we going to do what he asks? And we're going to talk about those things here in the near future. But it's, you know, it's like the old song they used to say, trust and obey because there's no other way to be happy in Yeshua but to trust and obey. So the reason I bring that up is because, again, I want to bring this forward because I want us to live, and I could have put so much more, but trying to do this all in an hour or less is pretty tough. So I want to summarize this by saying we're being challenged right now. We are being challenged, like Danon said. There's not going to be any golden calves built with this group. I can be pretty sure of that. But unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of golden calves built in other places. And some people aren't even aware there's a golden calf. And that's sad. But I'm with Danon and I'm with all of you where we just want to hurry up and do everything that we need to do within our power and with the tasks and the assignments that we're given to trust and obey. Now, I'm about to say some things that I say in love, and I'm not trying to stir anybody up or I don't want to be offensive, but I want to give some examples of some of the things that I'm seeing. And I'm not to necessarily anybody here, but I know a lot of you people come into contact, a lot of my brothers and sisters here come into contact with other people that are out there and other fellowships and other groups, like Jesse, for instance, and other people that have other fellowship groups they go to. And again, I would say, and Jesse does a marvelous job of this, in that he can be around other people who don't necessarily believe everything that he believes, but yet he doesn't get offended. And that's a great thing. And I would encourage you and edify you and build all of you up in that. Do not allow the enemy to place in front of you bait. Do not be baited by the enemy to take the bait of offense and get mad at your brothers or sisters, whether they believe the same way you believe or not. Pray for them. Lift them up. When somebody says, you don't know what you're talking about, you know, I believe in this or I believe that, or, you know, this is the way we should believe and I don't agree with you and blah, blah, blah. That's okay. If that's their stand and they don't want to just discuss it and have a midrash or anything like that, then wish them well and, you know, give them, you know, peace and shalom and go on their way and pray for them. Because if you know that you're right, no matter what it is, I don't care if it's calendar, I don't care if it's the priesthood of Melchizedek, I don't care what it is. if you're sure that what you know is what you know, and you can prove it by the scriptures, then you can stand your ground and just still love other people. But if you have a problem or have a problem trying to love others, then I encourage you really to speak to Yahweh. And if you had past problems like I used to, being passive aggressive, and my wife was wonderful, 21 years of marriage, she was able to help deliver me from having a passive aggressive attitude and characteristics, and I got completely out of that, and I grew. I can't even tell you how much I have grown in the last 21 years just watching her walk in the Word, because she was a Word person. And so I'm grateful that He has redeemed me. I'm grateful that He has helped me come out of a lot of those addictions and a lot of those things that we talked about earlier. And I am open to help any brother, sister. I prefer to help brothers. I don't mind helping sisters, but I'd rather have another sister with me or right beside me to help me, because sometimes it's not just good to talk one-on-one, just being a brother. But I do talk to sisters one-on-one on the phone and stuff, but I'm talking about in person. So, so to talk and help, because there are things in my past that I won't go over here necessarily, but I am like an open book, and the Father knows my heart, and I can help walk people through and guide them through things. I'm not the deliverer. It's the Ruach. It's Yeshua. It's the Spirit of the living Elohim. That is the one that will deliver you. But I can help show you and give you examples of some of the things that I did, and show you scriptures and show you how you can be delivered from some of these things if you ever want to seek my help or seek any kind of mentoring in those areas. I'm not a pastor. I'm not any of those things. I'm here on the journey with you. So I will just put my arms around you, shoulder to shoulder, and walk with you side by side. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing this, because I'm pretty much done reading stuff like that. But I wanted you to know that I was going to be here for any of you. I'm here for any of you at all to help. So I'm an open book, and you can ask me anything, and I will not get offended. But I will tell you this one part of my life. I was in the military for 8 years, held a very high clearance. And I get asked, because when people find out about my past, they want to ask me about all the stuff that's going on with Trump and the virus and QAnon and all these videos and all this stuff that's going on. I am not a political person. I am not for Trump. I'm not against Trump. I'm not for anybody in the government. The government is corrupt. They do not eat from the tree of life. They eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Some eat at the good side, some eat at the bad side, and some eat all around. And so when people say, well, this Defense Department or this CIA person or this, that, or the other is saying this and that. And I have sent some of these videos out to warn people. When I have retweeted, or I don't tweet, but when I've resent certain videos out, and some of you know, because some of you on here right now have received some things, I only send those out to get you to think critically for yourself. That you don't necessarily just want to believe everything that comes to you. Because I will tell you, being in the military and having one of the highest clearances you can get, and seeing some of the things, and working in Europe during the time that they were creating the euro dollar, and that they were creating the World Health Organization was doing things, and I was over there with the World Bank and the Vatican and the non-GO offices of NGO offices of the UN, and all these global elitists over there, in Switzerland, where I was living, in Geneva, in London, I will tell you that it's been their aim since I've been there and being in the military that they've always wanted to bring this country down. So you cannot rely on any source that is put out there. I tell people, unless you were in the White House in a skiff, which is like a little dome of silence where nobody else can hear what you're talking about. And Trump was telling you everything, and he was telling you the truth. Unless you knew exactly everything, we don't know what's really going on. We have absolutely no idea. But if we stay focused on the Father, and we stay focused on the campsites, and we stay focused on this walk and the assignments and listening to that still small voice, then we will, and we're walking in our destiny, then it won't matter whose side is on whose side. We won't matter, is Trump really this or is Trump really that? You know, is he really going to deliver us from this heinous global elitist group? And is he really a patriot or is he really an elitist? Well, guess what? We're going to find out. It's only a matter of probably weeks, months, or maybe the next election. But it's coming soon. But I'm not going to sit around and wait and watch the news or sit around and watch Fox all day long or any of these other programs and listen to all this blather going on when I want to listen to that still small voice saying, ask me what you should do. And don't worry about what they're doing, because what they're doing has no bearing on what you're doing, because I've got an assignment for you. I have a destiny. Trust me. Don't trust Trump. And I'm not saying that you're not supposed to pay attention to what's going on out there in a general sense, but I would implore you, I would beseech you, as Shaw would say, brethren and sisterin, that's a word. I would beseech you that you would incline your ear to the Ruach HaKodesh and say, show me in calendar, show me in the Omer count, show me at Shavuot. Let that spirit that came through the temple and through that upper room and blew upon those apostles and disciples that were there and gave them the ability to go out and speak with boldness. I say to you, brethren, be bold, because you should be praying for a supernatural boldness, because we're going to need it. We're going to need to be bold in these days. There are people looking, and if we're getting sent videos and we're calling other people and saying, I don't know what to do. Do you know what to do? What do you think? Trump's going to do this? Do you think Trump's going to do that? Do you think the global elitists really are in charge? Do you think Trump's really in charge? Is he the president, or is FEMA in charge? I don't care who's in charge, because I know the Father's in charge. That's who's in charge. So I beseech you to just trust and obey and pray that he would give you the kind of love that when Yeshua would look upon a person, and it said he was filled with compassion. That's the kind of love that you want to be filled with. I want to be filled with love. I want to be filled with compassion. I want to be filled with the ability to reach out to someone and say, oh, how much the Father loves you. And really tell them what that really meant, and to show them where they can go. But have a boldness about it, and not a boldness to be arrogant, like I know it all, but a boldness to say, I'm confident because I know what the Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh, has placed inside of me. And I can tell you that if you do these things, if you seek him, you will find him. If you draw near to him, he's going to draw near to you. That's all he's looking for. He's searching for people who are going to stand and say, I'll do it. I'll go. Wherever you want me to go. Whatever you want me to do. I'll do it. I'm here for you. This is the vow and the oath that I took after my wife passed. Is I'm going to be 60 here in a couple of months. And I want the next years of my life, however many that's going to be pursuing nothing but what he wants me to pursue. Go where he wants me to go. Do what he wants me to do. Go where he wants me to go. And speak in boldness and not be shaken. Because I know that if I'm ever confronted with a vaccine, if I'm ever confronted with something, and I know I'm the temple, I know that I'm not going to defile my temple. And I can stand there and boldly say, no, thank you. And like somebody told me, I'll have an orange with me. And I'll say, here, I'll take that vaccine right here in that orange. And that person knows who she is. Told me that. So, I just want to tell you people that I love you guys. You're family to me. You are real family. And I really love and appreciate all of you. And I want you to know that I'm here for you. And I asked the Father all this week and last week that I just wanted to hopefully edify, embolden you, and have the Father speak through me. And it's not about me, but it's about him, and give him all the glory and the honor and the praise. And I hope that everything I have said to you tonight has done that. And I pray for you, and I bless you, and may the Father bless you and keep you and make his face shine upon you, because he truly is. So let's get out there and let's really walk out the Shema. Let us hear and obey. Let us Shema. Amen.
Amen. Yeah, thank you so much, Eric. Wow. And I'm hoping that everybody is starting to see what we can glean from reviewing and being reminded of the ancient Israelites' journey, because there's so many similarities in our own. As soon as we were called out, we were not even called out with a whole huge family. Many of us came out by ourselves, or loved ones did not follow in the same way. And so it was challenging. It's not like, you walked out with the 200,000 people, right? But, I hope that we all can see, like, we all have a journey, and you can probably see already where we're going with this and how we reflect on our own journey and what we've learned. And I think these lessons are not just our journey since we started or when we were called and when we were first baptized, but we're always retested and retested as we grow. If you think you've passed the test, you think you've looked back and you've done well and you did good at something, beware, because you'll be tested at a new level. And Yahuwah cannot move you forward until you pass a test. He'll keep moving you around and round and round that mountain. You'll keep getting the same challenges in your face over and over and over, right? We can all attest to that, right? We've lived it. And you start to realize after a few years, it's like, okay, I better dig in on this one because I don't want to go around that mountain one more time on the same challenge, right? But we're always going to have challenges. And that is what this journey is all about. And I think we can also see that it's not just our own personal journey that we're tested and that he's building the character in us, but I think we can already see that as the days of tribulation are here, that every one of these things, we're going to be retested again at the level of what's happening in our world around us. There's things that none of us have faced, except that it's coming. We're going to, all the challenges that are going to come with the world crumbling down around us. It's going to be new and different for every one of us. But we have to pass those tests again, just like the Israelites. Our Canaan is waiting for us too, that promised land, the place where Yahusha went away to prepare for us. And that is our hope,